This video was sponsored by Platinum Games. What if I told you you could enjoy the gorgeous, fluid, over-the-top Platinum-style action you've grown to love on your phone? What? It's true. Their game, World of Demons, is probably the coolest mobile game I've ever played. The controls are super intuitive and easy to pick up, but the potential for fierce fights and complex combos and other alliterative awesomeness is all there. You can choose from a bunch of different super cool samurai characters, and there are over 100 creepy, weirdo, scary yokai to recruit and summon. You can even use yokai abilities outside of battle to clear obstacles and find secrets and stuff, and you know Arlo's a big fan of that kind of thing. But Arlo, this is a mobile game. Aren't there like a bunch of pay-to-win microtransactions and whatnot? No, this is a single-player game with a lengthy campaign, 16 long stages plus bonus stages. And you can play the whole thing with an Apple Arcade subscription, no strings attached. It's just like a cool video game on your phone. And while we're talking about World of Demons, be sure to follow the game on Twitter and Instagram for all sorts of art and yokai previews and fun stuff. And also check out the game's digital soundtracks, which were released recently and are super good. Check the description below to learn more about World of Demons. Like a half a hole? My beautiful friends, if you're anything like me, you are still basking in the residual glow of E3, still buzzing from the excitement, and still obsessively watching the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, wishing desperately that it was 2022 right now. The short but sweet trailer showed off a wealth of new concepts, many only creating new questions rather than answering old ones. Like, why is Link's arm all weird? How did everything get all floaty? What's with this broom robot thing? What's that big Goopa Goop monster you gotta hit with the fire? Why do bokoblins have big ol' horns now? Are they worth more? And so on. But even amid all the new questions, it seems that one older question might have actually been answered. When the first trailer dropped, wow, can you believe it's already been 29 years? That's game development, though. A rush game is forever bad and all that. Well, back then, in addition to all the different theories on the story and what the game might be like, one idea sort of rose to the top. Could this be the first mainline Zelda game where we get to really play as Zelda herself? No controlling her ghost, no spin-off, just an honest-to-goodness playable Zelda? Many of us were very excited by that prospect. But now it seems that the game's second trailer very likely snuffed out that hope entirely. And I'm seeing a lot of dejected folks who are afraid she's been given maiden status yet again, and that our hopes and dreams have dried up like an old Ganondorf, left in the cellar to get all musty and faded with disuse. If you're one of those people who is disappointed by this, I want to try to offer you some hope. I think there's still a fine chance that Zelda will be playable in some capacity, or otherwise have a big role in the story. Do I have any solid evidence to back up this claim? Have I noticed a little detail in the trailer that no one else has? Alas, that is not the case, I'm afraid. All I have is my knowledge and experience with storytelling. Past Zelda games, other past Nintendo games, other games and stories in general. All I can do is take what little we have in these trailers and weigh it against that knowledge. And when I do, my gut tells me there's still a chance. Here is why. First of all, though, Playable Zelda, based on that microscopic first teaser trailer, we all knew we didn't have enough information to truly jump to such a conclusion. But the setup was there. Link was completely alone in the first game. Zelda tied up in a 100-year plus 100-hour struggle with Calamity Ganon. But in the sequel, she's right there with him again, doing stuff, going on creepy mummy adventures. And most strikingly, she's got a different haircut. Her hair's shorter. I mean, if I was gonna be a playable character in an epic adventure, I'd probably want to get a haircut too. Okay, this is the silliest little detail, and yet for some reason, I feel like this was what did it. This was what really drove home the idea of Zelda being playable. Is it absurd? Absolutely. But it is what it is. That's what it got us all thinking about. Then in the trailer, we see the ground break away and Zelda goes with it. And from there, we don't get any gameplay or even see what happens to either character. With our excitable imaginations, it's all too easy to see this as a setup for Zelda to go off on her own adventure. Or maybe for Link to fall in this hole with her, and for them to find themselves in some new place where they can continue their adventure together. We all knew it was probably a long shot, thought, but at the same time, Breath of the Wild broke so many Zelda conventions and completely refreshed the series. Even before it was revealed, Aonuma was talking about changing things up, considering concepts they'd never been able to play with before. He specifically mentioned multiplayer, which could absolutely mean co-op. Even Link Between Worlds, with its non-linear nature, proved that Nintendo wanted to do something different with Zelda. So, a playable Zelda? Sure, why not? I personally didn't think playing exclusively as her was ever going to happen in a mainline game, and I still don't, unfortunately. But controlling her at least sometimes was a perfectly reasonable idea. Another character with a different playstyle to help keep the experience fresh and interesting, and a way to get the most fleshed out Zelda ever in the spotlight more? Yes, sign me up. And then the second trailer happened. Turns out Zelda really does just fall down that hole, and Link goes on his second adventure without her. Bye, Zelda, have fun in that hole. Nintendo didn't want to reveal the name in the game because it'll say too much about the story, so I'm thinking it's probably like The Legend of Zelda, Shovel of the Sages, or something. Gotta go dig Zelda out. Maybe The Ladder of Light. Whatever the name or the ultimate goal of the game might be, though, this right here is confirmation, right? Or rather, deconfirmation? Doesn't this mean that playable Zelda is right out of the question? I mean, you still got these tiny little tidbits from the trailer you could try to make something of. Link's hair is long, and we can't see his face. Maybe this is Zelda. Or maybe this is Zelda in Link's body, and he's got her face? That'd be cool. Outside of those interesting theories, however, doesn't this seem like a cut and dried case? Definitely, absolutely no playable Zelda in Breath of the Wild 2. It's very possible, but maybe not. And that's because when I look at this, my mind immediately turns, as it does many times a day and in any given situation, let's be honest, to Paper Mario. One of the absolute best things about the first two Paper Mario games was that they turned the Peach getting kidnapped dynamic on its head. These were long games with a lot of story and a lot of characters. The developers knew that Bowser nabbing Peach right at the beginning of a game and not letting the player see her until the end would be a gigantic waste of a character. I mean, this was an opportunity for Peach to be a character at all. She very well might have been more of a character in Super Mario RPG, but I haven't played that yet because I'm kind of waiting for the right time because I really want to enjoy it, and I know it's ridiculous for the Paper Mario guy to not have played the predecessor to the series, but it just never happened, and I'm sorry, so moving on. The thing about those first two Paper Mario games, though, is that Peach wasn't just a character that the story followed. They could have easily just let us watch her through cutscenes, but instead, we got to play as her between every single chapter. These little sequences would have Peach sneaking around, doing mini-games, gathering information, and ultimately helping Mario on his quest. They gave her agency, they changed up the gameplay, and they provided some of the funnest and funniest character interactions in their respective games. Even as a young lad, I remember looking forward to the Peach sections in particular. They were highlights in already incredible games. Back to Zelda falling down that hole. Might this just be her getting lost somewhere so Link has to find her or whatever? Maybe. But to me, this could easily be a setup identical to Peach's. Start the story off with the characters being separated, then allow the player to return to the secondary character every once in a while in order to help progress the story. As I said, I never really expected a fully playable Zelda at the start of the game, but supplemental sequences would make all the sense in the world. Because let's look at the specifics of this scenario. We see Zelda fall down the hole, but not Link. After she does, we get this glowing light thing as though we are moving through some kind of portal. Then we see Link falling from way high up in the sky, and other details in the trailer lead us to believe that perhaps Link has traveled through time or into an alternate reality. It's certainly possible that they both fell in and that the hole led to the portal and they're simply in separate parts of Hyrule now. It could be that Mummydorf has captured Zelda. But I must draw attention once more to the fact that we only see Zelda falling into the hole, and they're very deliberate in showing that to us. Even in the teaser, they want us to know that the two are separated. Zelda is now in a pit. What if Zelda has her own adventure parallel to Link's underground? Link is pushing into a new frontier, the sky, but Zelda is trapped in the sprawling catacombs beneath Hyrule. Obviously, this is perfect thematically and would provide a lot of the dark, spooky atmosphere Aonuma promised us after the first trailer. No matter how much time Link spends flying around above the sunlit clouds, eventually we'll always return to Zelda, creeping her way through pitch-black tunnels. But how does she get around or do anything? Well, I can't help but notice that Link's got a weird Grosso arm now, and it's very likely that he's using it for his weirdo Sheikah powers. Which means that, most likely, Zelda's the one currently holding the Sheikah Slate. Especially when you consider that in all the first game's cutscenes, it basically belonged to her. If she was around, she had the slate. And the possibilities here are vast. There can be all sorts of horrific monsters down in the dark. Does Zelda know how to fight in this scenario? Well, they definitely could give her the full warrior treatment like in Age of Calamity, but I think it would be a lot more interesting for her to have to use her runes in clever ways to take out baddies. She could essentially face her own series of shrine puzzles, only instead of switches and rolling balls and levers and whatnot, she's trying to clear rooms of baddies using only the Sheikah Slate. She could also use it for stealth. She could use her map to see where baddies are and plan her routes accordingly. There could be a kind of extra scary enemy she can't kill and it stalks her all over the place. That's always fun. The horror potential is giving me goosebumps. Oh my gosh, this is the best idea. Okay, what if Ganondorf himself is down there? What if she's got to keep away from him? Yeah, I love it! However the combat or lack thereof ends up though, this definitely acts as a way to advance the story. Zelda's a researcher. She's down under Hyrule with the Sheikah Slate. She's constantly investigating as she moves along. She's finding hieroglyphics and weird data droplets and all sorts of stuff. Maybe she can even communicate with Link to some degree to help him out up on the surface. Or maybe only the player knows what she's doing, but she still uncovers bits of the story and manages to activate a bunch of devices that open up temples in the sky or do any number of things up there. Helping out was one of the things that made the Peach sections of Paper Mario so much fun. She gathered intel and sometimes even found items to send down to Mario. I absolutely love this kind of dynamic. It's empowering, it's a way to actually utilize the character, and it's about 1,000 times more interesting than just locking her in a tower or whatever and not seeing her until the end of the game. And one other good thing about my proposed scenario, as it did with Peach, it does technically motivate the player to rescue the princess. Even the best Zeldas get kidnapped, at least momentarily, because the trope does have a place in the Zelda story, and it seems that it might even be some kind of rule at Nintendo, wouldn't be surprised. But this is a way for her to be in peril, thus motivating the player to eventually rescue her while still acting to empower her. Her part is just as important as Link's in this adventure. She's one of the reasons he acts, but she's also one of the reasons he succeeds. Even looking past the mechanical and narrative potential this kind of scenario would provide, which is a whole lot, based on what we've seen, I think Zelda is going to play a big part in the story. Even if she's not playable, there's still a fine chance that she'll be around to help Link out, or at least to deliver story bits to the player. The only evidence I have here is the way Nintendo has previously handled Zelda as a character and the specific events leading up to Breath of the Wild 2. At least when it comes to 3D Zeldas, Zelda is no Peach. Nintendo has made a decent effort to give Zelda agency and to explore her various personalities. Spoilers for some Zelda games, if that matters to you. In Ocarina of Time, she had to suffer through Ganondorf's reign for years, and even took on a whole super cool alter ego. She was only kidnapped at the very last second, and once freed, she helped Link get out of a crumbling tower and beat Ganon. Wind Waker, she's a spunky pirate captain with a different name. She doesn't even really get that she is Zelda. And once she realizes it, she's locked into a tomb until you can rescue her, so that's like a half good, half bad example. Twilight Princess, she was a strong leader of Hyrule, though she did spend most of her time brooding in a tower. Definitely could have been better. But then we got a dramatic upswing. I won't go into detail because people will be playing Skyward Sword for the first time soon. But even if she did sort of fall into one or two of the classic maiden pitfalls in that game, she at least spent most of the story acting of her own free will. And as a character, she was much more fun and free-spirited than the other Zeldas. Then with Breath of the Wild, we got the most fleshed out Zelda ever. She did technically spend the game locked in Hyrule Castle, but that was purposeful purposeful so she could keep Ganon at bay. He was the one locked in the castle. And through memories, and indeed through playing Age of Calamity, we got to witness her doing her own thing, and just being awesome. All that to say, I just can't see Nintendo taking her away at the beginning of Breath of the Wild 2 and saying, "Go rescue the poor maiden." She has a strong role in most games. Nintendo has proven that they want her to be more than just a princess who gets kidnapped by the bad guy. And think of it from the perspective of her and Link. They're separated for 100 years while Link sleeps and Zelda's locked in a weird spirit battle. Then she pops out and she's like, "Cool, we can do stuff again. I can be part of the story. That's great." And then immediately, "Oh no, I fell down a hole. Rescue me, Link. See you 30 seconds before the credits roll." No, I don't think that's the plan they've got for our Zelda. I think based on what we've seen, there's a fine chance that she could still be playable in the sequel to Breath of the Wild. And even if that's a pie-in-the-sky wish, at the very least, I believe she'll play an important part in the story. Especially if the game does end up taking place in a totally different time period or alternate reality. Would they really want to make a sequel with 0 returning characters? At the very least, we need Zelda to give us a bit of comforting familiarity in this strange world. Zelda didn't go with Link to see that gross Ganon mummy for no reason. Until I have evidence that leads me to believe otherwise, I'm going to give the Zelda writers the benefit of the doubt and assume that this game will be at least relatively Zelderific. Am I talking nonsense here? Is it still way too early to be jumping to conclusions like this? Or do you think I might be onto something? Whatever the case, head on down to the comments and completely ignore this discussion and just jump right into why Zelda should be getting her own spin-off game instead. I mean, come on. Zelda game, Nintendo. Like seriously, Zelda game! Well, thank you for watching, and before I go, there is one last thing I need you to remember. World of Demons is available exclusively on Apple Arcade. Head down to the description to learn more about the game. Thanks again to Platinum Games for sponsoring this video. With intuitive controls, frantic action, and over 100 yokai to recruit and summon, World of Demons is